Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thank you for following our ADHD series. Today we're talking about ADHD diagnosis in children. Now here is the big question. How does your doctor know if the child has ADHD? They can't take a blood test, they can't scan the child's brain like an x-ray. ADHD is about behavior. So the doctor has to look carefully at what the child does, where they do it, and how often it happens. One important rule is that this behavior must show up in at least two places. That could be the home and school, or maybe school and after-school activities. Why is that important? Because sometimes a kid may only act up at home, and that could be more about what's going on in that family. Or maybe they only struggle at school, which could be because of the classroom or the teacher. So ADHD isn't a one-place problem. It shows up across different parts of the child's life. And this is an important point because I often have parents coming in to say, my child must have ADHD, they're always misbehaving. But then we find out that the misbehavior is only at home. The child is well behaved in school. So that can't be ADHD. It's got to be a behavior that is consistent in at least two settings. So how does the doctor then figure out if this is ADHD? They use something called a questionnaire. It's basically a list of questions given to people who know the child well, like the parents and the teachers. So usually, two teachers will fill it out, or a teacher and a parent. Why both people? We need that because we want to see the child's total behavior in different settings. So the questions will be things like, does the child have trouble paying attention? Does the child often interrupt others? Do they forget things easily or lose their stuff a lot? So it's like you have to be like a detective trying to gather evidence that the child has ADHD. But mind you, that is not just about how much you fidget or talk. Doctors also want to know how those behaviors affect your life. Because someone could be very fidgety, but they are coping, they are doing well, then it doesn't mean they have ADHD. So the form will also ask questions like, are these symptoms making it hard for the child to do well in school? Are they struggling to make or keep friends? Do they have trouble following rules from adults? So that's really important because just being busy or talkative doesn't mean you have ADHD. The real clue is when those behaviors make things really difficult, like the child keeps getting into trouble or falling behind in class or is left out, can't make friends, things like that. So for someone to be diagnosed with ADHD, the behavior also needs to have been happening for a long time, usually 6 months or more, and usually starts before the age of 12, okay? And it's not just a one-time thing. These patterns show up again and again in the child's life. So there are 3 types of ADHD. There's the inattentive type. These are kids who mostly struggle with focus. They may daydream, they may forget things, they may miss details. They're like daydreamers, they are inattentive, and that was previously called attention deficit disorder. They struggle mostly with focus, with organization, with memory. Not so much, they don't really have much hyperactivity. And they often go unnoticed because they aren't disruptive. They still face big challenges, okay? Now, common signs will be things like they're easily distracted, they get sidetracked by noises or thoughts or anything happening around them. They're forgetful, they lose homework, they forget instructions, they miss their appointments, they struggle to follow through, they start tasks, but they don't finish it. For example, they start some work at home, but they never finish it. They avoid anything that is mentally demanding. They hate long readings or detailed projects. They seem spaced out and lost in thoughts. They dream a lot and may seem like they are not listening. They are disorganized, they have a messy desk, or room or backpack. They struggle with managing their time. And they want to focus, but their brain drifts away without warning. So teachers and parents might say that they're lazy or not trying, but they're actually struggling. And they may feel frustrated because they know they are smart, but they're struggling to show it. Now, you have the other type of ADHD, which is the hyperactive impulsive ADHD. Okay. Now, kids with hyperactive ADHD are always moving, they're always talking, they're always acting without thinking. They are the ones who they can't sit still. They just blot out answers. They seem to run on endless energy. They're full of energy. So some of the signs will be that they fidget a lot. They are tapping their fingers, they are shaking their legs, they are squirming in their seats, or they get up when they're supposed to stay put. They also talk non-stop, they interrupt other people, they finish other people's sentences, and they don't like to wait their turn in conversation. They act first and think later. They're the ones that will run into the street without looking, or even grab toys from other children, or make big decisions without considering the consequences. They struggle with patience. They hate waiting in line, and they can't sit still through meals. They get frustrated easily when things don't happen right away. So they're always on the go. They climb furniture, they jump around, they act like they are driven by a motor. They have a motor driving them. And their brain sends them signals to move and do things before they even realize it. They often get into trouble for being too loud or disruptive, even when they don't mean to be that way. They might feel misunderstood because people think they are wild or naughty, but they are really struggling to control their impulses. So in class, they may just shout out an answer instead of raising their hand, or they may knock over their chair because they are moving too much. And at home, they may interrupt the conversation. They may have massive meltdowns when they're told to wait, or they may take risks like jumping off the furniture. And with friends, with other children, the children might feel that this person is playing too rough or struggling to take turn in the game. And then you have the third type, who have a mixture of inattention and hyperactivity. So every child is different. One kid with ADHD might be super wriggly, another one might just seem spaced out. That's why the forms and careful observation are so important. So why does diagnosis matter? When ADHD is properly diagnosed, it means that help can now start. Teachers can give more support in class, parents can learn ways to guide the child better, and sometimes doctors recommend therapy or medicine to help the brain focus better. I've done a video on management of ADHD. Please watch that video because it talks about the different ways the condition can be managed, including medication. So with the right support, kids with ADHD can actually do well and excel in life, but they need to be diagnosed first of all. So a quick recap for us. ADHD affects attention, activity, impulse control. And for us to make a diagnosis, it has to show up in 2 or more places, like at home and in school. Doctors use questionnaires from parents, from teachers to be able to make the diagnosis. And it's about how the behavior affects the child's schooling, their friendships, okay? ADHD can be different for each child. Getting help early is what makes a big difference. So every brain is unique. Understanding your child's brain is the first step to helping them become their best self. I hope this has been useful to you. Please watch all the videos in the series to gain a fuller understanding of what ADHD is, so we can support our children and other people with ADHD in a better way. So please subscribe and share the video, and continue to follow the channel as we explore this really important topic. See you in my next video.